Okay, we're going to do a second day of dividing decimals. Now let's go ahead and review the steps. The first thing that you need to remember when you're dividing decimals is that you need to set up the division problem correctly. When it's written in the horizontal form, it is the dividend divided by the divisor equals the quotient. When I need to change that so I can solve it, I write the dividend on the inside. I draw my division bars. I put my divisor on the outside. And once I've solved it, my quotient, my answer, will be at the top. The second thing I need to do is look to see if there's a decimal in the divisor. If there's a decimal in this part of the problem, then it must be moved to the right. I'm going to count how many times I move it to the right. Then I have to do the same movement in the dividend. I'll show you when we get to the examples. The third step, I will do the division. And then once I have the division done, I will bring the decimal straight up into the, whoops, that's supposed to say quotient. Now let's go ahead and fix that. Okay, so let's go ahead and try our first example problem. Okay, I started with a word problem so you can kind of see where the numbers are coming from. I earned $25.20 at the bake sale. I sold cookies for 45 cents each. How many cookies did I sell? Now remember, our dividend is going to be our total number. It is the total amount of money that I have, and I'm going to divide it by the amount of money that I charged for each of my cookies. So to write this horizontally, this would be $25.20 divided by 45 cents. And then I want to look for my answer. Now to set this up for solving, remember the dividend, our total, goes inside. So $25.20 divided by, that's how I remember, $25.20 divided by, I draw the little house over my dividend, divided by 45 cents. So I'm going to put that over here, 45 cents. Okay, so I've now set up my problem correctly. My second step is to look to see if there's a decimal in the divisor, and I do have a decimal in the divisor. So it's important that you take that decimal and I'm going to move it to the right. I have to move it to the right so that I have a whole number. That means in order to move it to the right, I've got to go 1, 2. Since I moved 2 spots in the divisor, I also need to move 2 times in the dividend. 1, 2. So my new decimal is right here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and solve the problem. Now I have the number 45. 45 does not go into 2. 45 does not go into 25. 45 does go into 252. In fact, it goes in about, let's see, that would go into 102 times. So 200, that would be 4 times. It goes in about 5 times. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 2 is 22. Okay, so now that I have that, I need to subtract, borrow. Okay, 12 take away 5 is 7. 4 take away 2 is 2. And 2 take away 2 is 0. Okay, 27. Well, that number is smaller than my 45, so I've done this right. Now I'm going to bring in my 0. How many times does 45 go into 270? Well, it went into 252 5 times. I think it could go in one more time. So let's say 6. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 3 is 27. Oh, look, it goes in perfectly. Okay, so now I have solved the division. Now, step 4, bring the decimal straight up. So I'm going to bring the decimal straight up. So my answer is 56 cookies. That's how many I sold. Now, let's go ahead and just look at some division problems. Make sure we set them up correctly. Okay, our first one, we have $27.84 divided by 32 cents. So I'm going to make sure I write this correctly. Since this is my dividend, it goes inside. So 27.84 divided by 0.32. Now again, I notice that they have a decimal in the dividend, so I'm going to move it 2 times to get a whole number. Now if I move it 2 times on the outside, I need to move it 2 times on the inside. So my new decimal goes right there. Okay, so now I have the number 32. It does not go into 2. 32 does not go into 27. 32 does go into 278. So let's see, 32 goes into 100 about 3 times. So 3, 6, 7, 8. I'm thinking it's going to go in about 8 times. 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 1 is 25. Let's do our subtraction. 8 take away 6 is 2. 7 take away 5 is 2. Okay, and that's 0. Okay, this number is smaller than my divisor, so I've done this correctly. I'm going to bring down my 4. Okay, so 8 times 32 was 256. Well, this number's not quite so big, so I'm thinking it's going to be 7 times. 7 times 2 is 14. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 1 is 22. Oh, and look at that, it works out just right. Now again, step 4, bring up that decimal, and my answer is 87. Okay, we've got a couple more here just to kind of watch and make sure we're doing this correctly. Notice I have 1.704 divided by 0.12. So to set this up correctly, I say 1.704 divided by 0.12. You don't always have to write that 0. So I notice again, I have 2 spots in my divisor, 1, 2. So I've got to move it 1, 2. So now my decimal is between the 0 and the 4. Okay, let's see. 12 now, 12 is my whole number, does not go into 1. 12 does go into 17 one time. 1 times 12 is 12. Do my subtraction. 17 minus 12 is 5. Okay, 5 is smaller than 12, so I've done this right. So now I'm going to bring down my 0. How many times does 12 go into 50? Well, I know that 4 times 12 is 48, so it's going to be 4 times. And 4 times 12 is 48. Okay, 50 minus 48 is 2. Okay, 2 is smaller than 12, so I've done this correctly. I'm going to bring down my 4. Okay, how many times does 12 go into 24? Oh, yay, that's an easy one. 2 times. 2 times 12 is 24. And my problem is done. Now, what do I do with that decimal? Now, remember, the decimal was between the 0 and the 4, so I'm going to bring it straight up. And now it's between the 4 and the 2. So my answer is 14.2. Okay. And one more problem over here. We've got 50.67 divided by 0.9. So to write this so I can solve it, I say 50.67 divided by, put it inside the house. Then I have my number, my divisor, 0.9. This time I notice I only have 1 decimal spot to make a whole number. So I'm only going to move it 1 time in the dividend, 1 time. So now my decimal is between the 6 and the 7. Okay, so how many times does 9 go into 5? It doesn't. 9 goes into 50. Let's see, 9 times 5 is 45. So it's going to go in 5 times. 5 times 9 is 45. 50, take away 45 is 5. 5 is less than 9, so I did that correct. Let's go to bring down my 6. 9 into 56. Well, I know 9 times 6 is 54, so it's got to be 6 times. 6 times 9 is 54. 56, take away 54 is 2. 2 is less than 9, so I keep going. Bring down my 7. 9 goes into 27 3 times. So 3 times 9 is 27, and I've reached 0. Okay, now that I've solved it, let's go ahead and bring that decimal up. Remember, it's between the 6 and the 7. This is why we have to write our numbers so neatly, so I know exactly where it goes. It goes between the 6 and the 3. So my answer is 56.3. And I'm done. And that is dividing decimals.